Hey everyone, this is Tara from Wild Bird Farm. I garden here in Zone 5 in central Iowa. I've had some questions about how I have my dahlia rows set up, so I thought we'd come out here at golden hour and just walk through the field. I couldn't help the other night. I picked a few and then I just added to it here. Got to show you a few of my early faves. This one is Silver Years. I've seen pictures of this, and I actually cut this one last night and it was more closed, but it really opened up. Another early favorite is Wizard of Oz, another new to me one. I don't know, when I first started growing dahlias, I thought, well, they don't really bloom until August, September, so I want more fall colors. So I bought a lot of oranges and maroons. And then last year when it was dahlia vying time, I thought, no, I am ready for some lighter, paler colors. So I added some into the mix. I definitely am excited about all of these. A good arrangement here, but as we'll see as we walk through the rows, we have quite a few more. So before we get into the rows, I use tomato twine and I just kind of make a grid. I go on each side of the post, and I'll show you the posts in a second. And then on the lower section, I do an X for support. And then when I do my second layer up, it's just kind of a long rectangle. I'll show you as we get going. In my early years, when I didn't have very many varieties, we used T-posts. T-posts are pretty expensive. I think they're over $7 a piece now. So I found these thin, I think they're called push-ins, I think is what they're called. Cat's on my foot again. But they're much more thin. They're made of metal. They're easy for me to install rather than having to pound in the T-post. You just come and you just push the triangle into the ground. They've worked really well for me so far. This is the second year that I've been using them. We've had high winds. Not like hurricane winds, but we've had 40 plus miles an hour wind. They've been doing good. I will say I really tried to minimize my space to minimize weeds this year, and I think I made the pathways a little bit too narrow. I did 18-inch beds and then 18-inch paths, and because we're having a great amount of rain, the dahlias are large already and they're going to continue growing. They're really going to bulk up and they're pushing out of their space, making my walkway even more narrow. Now for me, I can handle that, but for you pickers, that isn't ideal. I think going forward, I'll keep the 18-inch rows, but then increase the walking paths to 24 inches. I don't want to make them too big because we've built the wood boxes. We used to have grass in between, and those grass rows were almost 4 feet. I just felt like that was a lot of wasted space and a lot of maintenance for me as far as weeding and a lot of mowing and things like that. So I'm going to take you off the tripod and we'll get up close and kind of look at some of the dahlias. Okay, so as we've seen before, we implemented kind of these planting blocks this year. They're 25 feet by 25 feet. Again, the planting row here is 18 inches-ish. I didn't measure, I just kind of eyeballed it after the first one. The walking paths are again the same width, but you can see when they're growing outside of their kind of corralled in area, it's going to get a little bit tough to get in there on some of the varieties. It's more on this side. If you look down the paths, they're a little bit more open. My daughter helped me with these. Again, this is tomato twine, so we're going to use these silver push-in posts. I'll see at the end if I have one out of the ground that I can show you, the triangle bottom. But we just push these in on each side and then wrap the twine. So right now we have 2 layers. If they really grow up, I can see us having to do a third possibly. Say hi to midnight. Oh no, that's shadow. Say hi to shadow. So on this bottom row, let me see, here's one where you can see. On the bottom row of twine, we do an X for extra support. But then on the second, and she actually put a third on this one already. On the second and the third, it's just corralling them on the outside edges. But this bottom one has the outside rectangle and then an X kind of for extra support. Now one other thing I did go through, no, I think you can see over here by shadow. I did go through on most of these plants and I pulled off some of the bottom leaves just to help with airflow. They're very green and lush this year. You can see that where this one probably needs some fertilizer though. But for the most part, I went through just to give them a little bit easier time for airflow. Hi, kitty, out of the way. And then right now, I just have the name stuck in the ground, but I need, hi, kitty, say hi. I need to come through and put the tree tags on the, down at the bottom of the dahlias. So I kind of have a secondary naming system. Now, as we've looked at before, I use, these are 9 by 6 inch, I believe, organza bags. I've gotten them off Amazon. I've used peach, and then you can see the first year I used black. It didn't seem to make any difference. The sun can get through the black. A lot of the black ones did fade though, like this one doesn't really look black anymore, but it used to be. So some of them have faded over time, but I'm still using them year over year. But this keeps the blooms, keeps the insects and the pests off the blooms, so keeps them perfect. And I just slip them over the top and just kind of cinch the bag. I don't put it right under the bloom. You want it to be able to move a little bit on the stem because the stem is going to continue to grow. And then usually I have 2 hands, but then I just kind of cinch it tight. And then I just come through, I harvest them with the bags on. I take them off in the house, but you could easily take them off in the field. Take it off this one, and like this one needs it, put it on this one. And then at the same time I'm putting the bags on, I take the side leaders, the side blooms off. I cut them down here at the base so we have one nice bloom and not a lot around it. You certainly don't have to do that. This is Boom Boom White. Isn't she pretty? There's going to be a lot of really pretty ones soon here. Let's go see. I'm not going to know all the names. Sometimes they come to me and sometimes they don't. And probably when I'm editing this, I'll remember them and can put them on the screen. I think this one's Maroon Fox. Here's the one of the Wizard of Oz plants. And gosh, I just love this plant. It's given me a lot of blooms so far. It's the most I've picked. I think I've picked 4 just for myself. But then there's going to be some here out in the field. I believe the majority of this row is Cornell Bronze, and then a lot of this row is Cornell. But I noticed I must have gotten a late Wizard of Oz, or I forgot it and stuck it there. So besides these rows, way over there in the far box behind the sunflowers, I have 2 more rows of dahlias that need to get corralled. So I need to get that done pretty quick. But the celosia is starting to come on. Of course, the glads are coming on. Gomphrena. I have a couple little patches of basil that I like to put with the dahlias. So lots of little fun bits and pieces here. I did grab one of the silver, so this is what it looks like. I'm not going to be good with, it's at least 4, well, let's put it up to me. It's 4 feet long. And I think it's called a step-in. I could be saying the wrong word. I'll look it up. If it's wrong, I'll put it on the screen. But you just put this end in the dirt and you just step on it, so the soil is going to generally come up level. So much easier, at least for me, to put in than T-posts, and again, working well so far. I haven't actually had any bend or like just fall out. I have these, I'm using these for the amaranth. That will probably be the heaviest thing I'm using it for, and those look great right now, but I could see if like a windstorm or something comes that's really pushing them around, that might be an issue. I don't net my sunflowers. That would be the other thing that I think would be a little heavy for these. But so good so far. And again, less than $2 each. I just get them at our local home improvement store. It's called Menards, but I'm sure like Home Depot and Lowe's would have the same thing. As far as the types of dahlias I grow, because I am selling them, the majority of them, for retail bouquets or as U-picks, I want the blooms to last as long as possible. I have no cafe au laits just because they didn't last for me very long the first year, and I didn't have good tuber storage, so I just haven't bought any more. So again, the majority of what I have are ball dahlias. You'll see a few of the decoratives I think I have, and I'd like to get a few different kinds just to try. But the vast majority is ball. Now I do have the silver years that I showed you is a decorative. I don't know if it's a formal or informal. I'll have to look that up. For the most part, most of the time you want to harvest your dahlias when they're fully bloomed. Like this one, when the petals are back, but they're still really supple and not papery at all, that's when you want to harvest them. Like this one is maybe just a touch past its prime. Because they don't open traditionally too much in the vase once you cut them. Although, as I mentioned, I cut this one the other night and it opened up a lot more. So I think it's worth experimenting a little bit with your dahlias to see, like for example, this one you can cut a little bit, you know, a day or two sooner, knowing that it's still going to open up and give you a really pretty shape. If I had cut most of my ball dahlias that soon, they're not going to continue to open up and they're just going to look a little bit immature. So that's something to play with, especially if you have different types of dahlias. As far as fertilizing, I amended this bed with compost really heavily, partly because we worked up the soil again, and partly because dahlias really like a good compost to grow in. So I see myself amending, if not the whole planting bed, at least the holes where the dahlias go each year. And then I also use my backpack sprayer and I use More Bloom. I believe the brand is Alaska. As I'm editing here, I just want to clarify, when the dahlias are small and we want green growth, I do feed with more nitrogen through a fish fertilizer. And then as they are getting ready for blooms later in the season, that's when I switch to the Alaska More Bloom. And I put that and maybe some water-soluble calcium that I make from eggshells. Jenny Love has a very easy blog post about making this. I made it last year. I'm making it again now actually in my kitchen. So that's something else I add to the backpack sprayer, and they just get a good foliar feed. Because these are blooming earlier this year, I'm gonna have to see how they do. They may need like an organic granular fertilizer kind of sprinkled around the stalk at the base of the plant, like before a good rain. I'm not sure if they're gonna need that, but it might be something I have to do this year just because they're blooming. Probably it'll be a full month longer than they have for me in the past. We'll just kind of have to see how it goes. I did come through when they were younger and pinch out the central leader stem, and this just encourages more branching. There's lots of information, articles, blog posts, YouTube videos about that. So if you're not familiar with that, go check one of those out. But I did do that with the majority of this bed of dahlias. Okay guys, that does it for me today. The sun is about to set and I'm gonna head in and put my feet up for a few minutes. Let me know if you have questions about dahlias in the comments below. I do have a full-length video from last year kind of listing out all the varieties I grew. Of course, I added to that this year, so I will do a roundup at some point of some of my favorites. But for now, I just kind of wanted to hit some of those questions I was seeing in my inbox as well as on social media. But let me know what your favorite dahlia is below, because I'm always looking to kind of start a list for the following year. Until next time, everyone, happy gardening.